The epidemic here is worse than previously estimated, much worse.
The message that's been pushed on us, it's your fault you're fat.
Shouldn't be so hard to get them to run around and play, right?
They have voracious appetites and they don't exercise enough.
It's about how active our kids are.
If you've seen the movie Fed Up, you know that things have gone terribly wrong with the food supply in our country, and even all over the world. Not only are we eating too much food, we're eating and drinking the wrong food. Sugar-sweetened beverages, added sugars in 80% of our food products, and a diet rich in refined grains and other carbohydrates is making a third of our population sick with diseases like diabetes and metabolic syndrome. Even heart disease and some cancers can be blamed on the diet we've been eating over the past 30 years. Who's to blame for this emerging wave of obesity and related metabolic diseases? We've been told that it's our fault for not sticking to the low-fat diet recommended by the U.S. Department of Agriculture through its food pyramid and now MyPlate recommendations. We've also been told that we don't exercise enough, but in fact we have followed these recommendations. We've dropped the proportion of fats in our diet and even increased our exercise over the past decade, but it hasn't worked. We're getting heavier and sicker every year. So something is terribly wrong with the advice we've been given. Hi, I'm Dr. David Weed, and over the next 20 minutes, I want to follow up on the recommendations laid out in the film Fed Up, as they would apply to people living in the South Coast, including the cities of Fall River and New Bedford. Our area is already experiencing above average disease rates for obesity, diabetes, coronary artery disease, congestive heart failure, and stroke. While the recommendations we're about to hear may seem controversial, they are based on good science and much more likely to lead to healthier lives than following the advice we've been given over the past 30 years that got us into this crisis in the first place. In simple terms, as the movie lays out in detail, on the advice of the government starting in the 1980s, food manufacturers began removing fats from many of the foods we eat. Everything from milk and yogurt to breads, cereals, salad dressings, and even baked potato chips and ice cream have all earned the low-fat designation, thought to not only decrease heart disease, but also to help us lose weight. Boy, were they wrong. With the fats gone, foods were soon laced with added sugars, a form of carbohydrate that's easily absorbed by the body, but if not used for activity, immediately gets stored as body fat. We all thought that it was the fat in foods that was making us fat, when all along it was the carbs. And as the movie points out, even 40% of the people who do not gain a lot of weight on these foods still have gone on to develop metabolic syndrome and diabetes. As we saw in the movie, people who struggle to lose weight eating low-fat foods continue to gain weight even if they exercise strenuously and often. What they don't realize is that the excessive carbohydrates in these foods stimulated their bodies to produce more insulin, which is the hormone responsible for storing unused energy as body fat. In fact, the recommendations of the USDA 30 years ago that all of us should eat 6 to 11 servings of grain, cereals, bread, potatoes, and rice actually fueled the growing obesity crisis. With the help of government subsidies for sugar and corn, wheat, and other grains, food producers followed suit with an abundance of products that were cheap and all so tasty. And we were told that weight loss is all about energy balance. But what we haven't been told is that a calorie is not a calorie if what we're eating is mostly sugar or foods that turn to sugar by the time they hit our stomachs. Today's USDA dietary recommendations still advocate a whopping 300 grams of carbohydrates a day, well over half of what most people can tolerate without steady weight gain. If we wanted to design a program to make the American population fatter, we couldn't have done a better job. Unfortunately, we're now stuck with a food supply that nature never intended us to eat, and that has addicted most of the population to eating, so much so that they won't easily give it up. And we don't just eat 3 times a day. Because carbohydrates digest very quickly, we get hungry again in just a few hours. So now we have to snack throughout the day, every few hours, in response to the blood sugar crashes that we experience on this diet. Even our schools have responded with morning and afternoon snacks that simply maintain the carbohydrate addiction. And here on the South Coast, it doesn't help that our culture often reinforces the high carbohydrate consumption. Whether we're of Portuguese or Latino heritage, we are all too familiar with meals that include rice, potatoes, and lots of bread. Add to that all of the pastries, cakes, cookies, ice cream, and other foods that we're moving from the category of occasional treats to standard parts of every meal. And you have a slowly developing crisis in the making, right here in our own communities. So now, not only are we as overweight and obese as the rest of the nation, the rates of diabetes, heart disease, and some cancers are growing even faster. Right now, 1 out of 5 people over the age of 60 in our area has diabetes, and it's the single biggest reason that people are admitted to our hospitals. While we're doing better at keeping people alive with these diseases, the length of time that they are disabled with these illnesses is increasing, as people are getting sicker at earlier and earlier ages. Even our teenagers are getting type 2 diabetes, now the largest medical concern for this age group. So do we just sit by and watch as these problems grow, or is there something we can do about it? While the solution is by no means easy, if we understand what made it happen, there are some solutions. As the movie Fed Up points out, it took over 30 years to get where we are now, so it's going to take a long time to fix the problem. But we can recall that we were in the same place with smoking 30 years ago. Over that time, we instituted laws, policies, and regulations that gradually reduced the addiction to nicotine to less than half of what it once was. Can we do the same with our addiction to high carbohydrate diets? Here are 10 things we can do.
Drastically reduce the quantity of sugary sweetened beverages we consume. Already, many parents and our schools have gotten the message that soda is no longer on the menu. Unfortunately, youth use their own resources to continue to use these products, many of which are loaded with caffeine and can be very harmful when consumed in large doses. We need to stop offering these at other places where children purchase drinks, such as sports events, festivals, and entertainment venues. We should also recommend limitations on fruit juice and sports drinks, which contain just as much sugar. And how about bringing back free water and bubblers in our parks and public spaces, most of which have gone unrepaired for years. Access to free water should be a right for everyone in every location. In addition, we need to teach people how to recognize and avoid added sugar in their food, which goes by many names. Let's teach people to read the nutrition facts labels so they can limit the total daily amount of added sugars to 150 calories for men and 100 calories for women.
Move away from low-fat and fat-free products. Since the 1970s, we have been taught that fat is bad for us, but that is partially misleading. Recent research does not completely support the once accepted view that saturated fat increases the risk of heart disease and stroke. While trans fats, most of which are man-made, do appear to negatively impact on our cardiovascular health, the other types of fats have not been shown to do so in a recent study. We need to shift our mindset and open ourselves to include natural fats in our diet, foods like nuts and avocados. The Mediterranean diet is a prime example. There is evidence to suggest that the Mediterranean diet, which includes fish, poultry, nuts, and olive oil, may result in less cardiac and stroke deaths than a low-fat diet. The truth is that many processed low-fat foods on their own would taste terrible. To make them more palatable, manufacturers add sugar and lots of it. Now we are beginning to uncover the dangers of excess sugar. Our nutrition labels do not help. Without a percentage of added sugar listed on the labels to guide us, we can easily be fooled by focusing instead on the fat content. There is a movement underway to change nutrition labels to include the amount of added sugar, and hopefully our new labeling will help us make better choices. While fats may not be as risky as we once thought, this does not mean we should turn around and eat unlimited red meat, especially processed meats, which may well have their own negative health consequences. Leaner meats may be acceptable in moderation. It would be best if these animal products were the result of healthy conditions for the animals with more grass-fed and free-range farming. Healthy natural fats should not be avoided in the same way we have been led to believe in the past.
We need to stop telling people that the way to lose weight is to consume low-fat foods. There are now well over 30 scientifically validated studies that show that diets low in carbohydrates but rich in fats are more effective for weight loss, and people are able to sustain these diets as a regular part of eating. Unfortunately, both the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society continue to state watching the amount of fat you eat is important because diets high in fat tend to be high in calories and can contribute to weight gain. While the first statement is partially true, good science and even the most casual observer knows that the second is patently false. If eating low-fat foods is so effective for losing weight, why is nearly everyone battling a bulging waistline? It's time to retire the low-fat diet craze and do something that makes sense to our bodies.
Stop recommending high carbohydrate diets to people with diabetes. Unfortunately, even the Center for Disease Control teaches people with diabetes that a diet of 150 carbohydrates a day will help them keep their blood sugar in control. That's like telling an alcoholic that what they need is a couple of beers a day to help them control their addiction to alcohol. While not every diabetic can easily follow a low carbohydrate diet at first, everyone should be offered information on how to do it, along with the support that anyone needs to make changes in the way they eat. When they learn that fats are part of a healthy diet, they won't find themselves with the same cravings that they've always had on low-fat diets. And for those who are truly addicted to carbohydrates, we need to offer the same kind of support we provide to those with other addictions.
So there you have it, 10 recommended changes that can help us change course away from the poor nutrition and sedentary path we're following to a more natural way of living that fits what our bodies need. Of course, we didn't say anything about reducing stress, getting more sleep, or keeping our spirits up with joyous laughter and lots of communal celebration. But let's assume that we're truly in charge of the lives we're leading and not just enslaved by our political and economic structures that we have tolerated for so long. Making changes, even small ones, takes energy, sustained effort, and courage. But the benefits can be enormous, not only for ourselves, but for the generations who will inherit the benefits of our willingness to change direction. Okay, if you want to see the video again or show it to anybody, the little brochure that's going around, it's over on the table. This one here. This is the entire script, okay, so you can read it. It's better with the graphics, so, and it's online, and the address online, the URL is right there. So, highly recommended. And if you, by the way, if you belong to a group and you want other people to know about this, I'm happy to go talk to anybody. I don't charge anything. I'm passing around a sign-in sheet, if you wouldn't mind, name, phone number, email. It's not a requirement, but I can put you on an email list, and You need a pen? Okay. So I'll start with my typical disclaimer that I'm not a physician, I'm a psychologist, okay? And even if I were a physician, I wouldn't be here to tell you what you should do medically. If you're on diabetes medications, you need to talk to your physician, because when you make changes in the amount of carbs that you eat, you may have to adjust either insulin or other diabetes medications. That's a good thing, okay? Lots of people who go on low-carb diets end up going off all their medication, okay? That's what we're trying to get people to do. But if you do it suddenly and don't adjust your medication, you can have some difficulty. So talk to your doctor. Okay? Just very briefly, what I went over last week is that we've all been told, you just heard again in the video, that fats are bad, we have to keep cholesterol down, all that stuff all over those years. In fact, when we reduce fats in our food, there are only three components of food, fat, protein, and carbohydrates. If you take out fat, you've got to put one of the other two in. We don't need more protein. People will get confused about this as a high protein diet, not high protein diet. Same amount of protein, you only need about 4 grams of protein a day anyway. So having protein is not what you need to replace the fats, the carbs with. When you take carbs out, what you need to do is put more fat in. And that's the biggest hurdle for people. After 40 years of being told fat is bad, it's hard. It was hard for me. Oh my God, eat fat. And in fact, that's what makes this work, okay? We'll get into some of the details on that. When you eat fat, you feel full longer. No longer is your body converting carbohydrates into your own body fat. In fact, eating fat forces your body to burn your own fat. And it's easier to stay on a low-carb diet long-term because hunger is not a problem. Low fat diets are essentially calorie-restricted diets. You can't eat too much. You all familiar with that? Okay? And the way you lose weight is basically by starving yourself. Well, how long can you go starving yourself? You know, a week, a month, a year? Very few people last much longer than a year starving themselves, okay? Our bodies use hunger to make us eat, okay? And our bodies will do anything to make us eat, okay? And it'll even slow down our metabolism, okay? So what you need to do is put the kind of food in your body that your body can use for energy, but that it doesn't turn around and store as body fat. And that's what we're talking about. We talked about the different types of fat, and we'll get into some more detail on that, but the old bugaboo has always been saturated fat, but that's evil, that you'll die if you eat saturated fat. A friend of mine who does research, used to be at UConn, is now up in Wisconsin, or in Ohio, sorry. But he's given people 3 times the amount of saturated fat in their diet, and then measured the amount of lipids, blood fat, if you will, no change whatsoever, okay? Your body does, this idea, remember we talked last week about clogging your arteries with fat, does not work that way, okay? Your body does things with fat, it doesn't park it in your arteries, all right? So eating fat helps by not stimulating insulin and forcing your body will burn any carb you put in it. That's its first choice, okay? Because it kind of has to get those carbs out of your bloodstream. Remember we talked about how blood sugar, glucose in the bloodstream is not good. It's actually a toxin. So your body tries to get out the sugar that you put in your body. And when I say sugar, I mean anything that's carbohydrate, because it all turns to glucose, okay? So the less of that you put in, the more that your body turns to fat. Where's it going to go for fat? Your stored fat, okay? And that's how, anybody have any experience with losing a few pounds over the past week?
I lost 8 pounds.
8 pounds. 7 pounds. 4 pounds. Hello? I mean, This works, all right? And it's not dangerous. Those are the two take-home messages, okay? And quite frankly, anytime you want to lose weight, just cut the carbs. Anytime you put the carbs back in, guess what'll happen? Right back, okay? So it's excess carbs that lead to weight gain. We hear a lot about calories in, calories out. That's a bunch of nonsense, okay? Our bodies are not a scale. We're not, sitting there. If we had to balance the calories that we ate every day to keep our weight the same, we'd go nuts, okay? Trying to determine whether you had 1,643 or 1,693 calories today. Our bodies don't work that way. Our bodies are hormonal, okay? We look at the kinds of things that our body does to regulate itself, okay? And there's all kinds of systems that help keep our weight in balance. And our bodies will adjust its metabolism if we're getting too much. And if we're getting too little, that's what happens when we're on calorie-restricted diets. Our metabolism begins to slow down. Our bodies don't burn as much because it says, I'm starving, okay? I'm going to conserve fuel. That's why you get these plateaus all the time, and people, well, I can't lose it. I'm starving myself, and I'm not losing weight. If you want to understand who and what we give carbs to, go to any farm. Anybody a farmer here? Okay. If you have pigs and you want to fatten them up, what do you give them? The guaranteed formula.
Bread.
What?
Bread.
Bread, yep. And corn. Okay. Any grain, really. Corn is easy, cheap. Okay. And skim milk. Oh, that's the same stuff we give to our kids over here, right? 40% of the foods that they're eating are based on corn and other grains. And we give them skim milk. And then we wonder, why are our kids gaining weight? I wonder. Talk to a farmer. Okay, come on. So we reverse the pyramid. Okay, what we eat a lot of down here in terms of vegetables, in particular vegetables that grow above the ground, not the root vegetables, because root vegetables are storing carbohydrates. That's why potatoes and turnips and everything else have more carbs. But certainly any kinds of protein in here, lean meats, eggs, fish, etc. Nuts. Okay, how many people stop eating nuts because they're full of fat, too much calories? Nuts are great food. They have lots of nutrition. And the kind of fat they have is an omega-3 fat, which is very good for you, just like fish. Low-fat dairy, okay, that is way up there. We want to reduce that. That really should say full-fat dairy, and that should be down on the list here. But notice how we get to wheat and cereal and grains and pasta and all that stuff. That's I eat those when I'm absolutely forced to, where that's all there is to eat, and I have to eat something. Then I'll eat that, but it's just awful. So, what you can eat, any unprocessed meat, fish, shellfish, eggs, anything with natural fats and oils, vegetables, dairy products, nuts, berries, fruit. People say, oh, I like fruit. Okay, well, what kind of fruit do we like in this country? What are our two favorite fruits in this country? What is it? Bananas, number one, very inexpensive. And what else? Not apples.
Orange.
Not oranges. Grapes. There it is. Why? Bananas and grapes have the highest concentration of sugar. And we've bred them to be very high in sugar. It's like candy, okay? So I used to start every morning back in my low-fat days. Oh, I can eat a banana. There's hardly any fat in a banana. Meanwhile, I'm on my low-fat diet, porking up. So, avoid sugar in any of its forms. Okay, there's lots of forms. But notice that list up there. This is probably one of the biggest hurdles for anybody moving to this kind of diet, because I hear people saying things like, I cannot live without, and then you fill in the blank, cake, ice cream, da 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 da. Okay, right? What does that sound like when you say, I can't live without something?
An addict.
What is that?
Like an addict.
An addict. It's an addiction. Absolutely. Okay? And that's how we need to treat those foods. We'll talk more about sugar in a minute. Okay, you're going to Friendly's. My wife listens to the newspaper. She said, you'd be interested in this. Friendly's combos. Oh boy, only $10. Here's a dessert, okay? Okay? I consider places like Friendly's like it's like a crack house. I mean, seriously. I mean, there's hardly anything you could eat in there if you're on a low-carb diet, okay? Try it sometime. Maybe the hamburger without the bun, that's about it, okay? But their business is to get you in the door so you can kill yourself, okay? I mean, seriously, okay? They aren't friendly. They're okay? So you get the crowd pleaser there. Sure, it'll please people. And be sure to take your diabetes medication. You'll need it. So, Friendly's, along with bars and crack houses, is all kind of in the same category here. Okay? I'm serious. Okay? It's all part of the same problem. Anybody know Bob Lustig? Anybody see his video? Over 1 million people have seen it online. It's very popular. If you Google it, just do Bob Lustig, it'll pop up. He's in University of California, San Francisco. But he's an endocrinologist and he knows how our bodies work better than anybody I've ever heard. And he'll get into a lot of detail if you want to listen to that. It's about an hour-long video. But people watch it with fascination because it explains what's wrong with sugar in our body. Okay? By the way, has sugar been around for a long, long time, since the dawn of time? When was sugar really prominent? I'll tell you, our country was involved in it. It wasn't until, I mean, there was some sugar, okay, and sugar was hard to get, and if you were wealthy, you could get sugar. You could get honey, okay, that was probably the oldest source of sugar, but you don't get a lot of honey, okay? Anybody have hives? I mean, it's hard to get honey, you know. On the other hand, you know, you see ships unloading huge bags of sugar, you know. It's a lot cheaper to make sugar. Where does that sugar come from? Where did we get sugar from in the 1700s?
Plantations in the Caribbean.
Yes, right. Remember the triangle trade with slavery? Okay? And you bring slaves over to the Caribbean, okay? And then you have them grow sugar cane, etc. Then the sugar goes where? Right over there in Bristol, okay? What would they make with it? You got it, rum, okay? And where would the rum go? Well, some here went over to England for the most part. We got sold over there. Okay. So whatever we didn't drink, we sold. Okay, we made a lot of money. It was lucrative. Okay, so here that sugar trade was the first time that sugar became abundant, and it was used first for booze. It wasn't really until the mid-1800s that people ever had sugar, you know, in a container that they could use. And that was usually preserved for tea or something of that sort, not large quantities. But then sugar got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper until the 1950s when, what did we invent? We had farm fields full of corn and no place to sell it. And we had subsidized farmers so much that they would go out of business if they couldn't sell their corn. So we had tons of boxcars, trainloads of corn. What are we going to do with all this corn? People are sick of eating corn. They've had enough corn. We've fed all our beef with corn. There's still more corn. What are we going to do with it? Squeeze it, process it, heat it, and out comes, so we have to combine it with some chemicals, okay? And out comes high fructose corn syrup, okay? That's where it comes from. Corn sugar, if you will, okay? But it's not an easy process. And believe me, if you take a look on the internet of how that stuff is made, you'll never drink it again. It's just gross. But that stuff would come out in tanker cars, okay? And where did we put it? What was one of our favorite beverages in America?
Coca-Cola.
Soda. And remember, we didn't know that they put high fructose corn syrup in soda until they said, oh, now you can get Coca-Cola with natural sugar. Remember, like that's a big deal. Okay. Well, we were all getting it, but guess where else we were putting it? Not just in our sodas and our cereals and 80% of our foods, including our little bread plant down here, right, that you said last week, Katie, you were smelling every morning?
Every morning.
Okay. Guess where else? What's America's favorite food? Snack food or quick food?
Chips.
Pardon me? Yeah, that, but if you're going to have a meal, you got a hungry crowd and you want to, there it is, pizza, okay? Guess what's in pizza? Sugar. Okay? As much sugar in a slice of pizza as in 2 Oreo cookies. Okay? Nobody knows that. You go to a restaurant, they don't tell you that. Okay? So here, America is being filled with sugar. Okay? So Lustig says sugar's a poison. It's a toxin. What's a toxin? It's something that if you can you eat a little of a toxin? Yeah. Okay. There are all kinds of toxins that we eat a little of. Okay. Chocolate, that's actually a toxin, but if we don't eat too much of it. Okay. What makes something a toxin?
Chemicals?
No, it's if we get to a point where we're getting too much, then it has toxic properties. It becomes poisonous in our system. And that's the deal with sugar. Small amounts, okay? A lot of people can tolerate. A lot of people can tolerate quite a bit. In fact, you probably know people who are skinny as a rail and live to 100, and they've been eating chocolate, day in and day out. Okay? In terms of its toxicity, it's not affecting them. How about 60 to 80% of the rest of the population? That's who it's toxic to. And if you have a weight problem, or it's difficult to lose weight, it's probably because sugar is acting as a toxin in your body. In particular, it affects your liver, where it's metabolized. When you metabolize fructose, that's the particular kind of sugar that in high fructose corn syrup, your liver has no choice but to turn that into fat. And so then you can get, anybody heard of fatty liver disease? Okay. That's happening not just with 40 and 50-year-old adults, it's happening with adolescents, okay? Who are sucking down 5, 6, 7 sodas a day, okay? In fact, they've done some recent experimental work and found that in 2 weeks, you can start to affect your liver by drinking 1 soda a day, okay? Is it addictive? Well, we think so. Is it highly addictive? Well, that's an interesting question, okay? We haven't done a lot of work. Nicole Avina, who I saw at Springfield College a couple months back, has been doing a lot of research in this area, and there are researchers who have demonstrated that sugar, I told you last week that you can give rats a choice of either sugar or cocaine and they go for the sugar. Okay. And with imagery, brain imagery, you can see that it lights up the pleasure sensors, sensory areas just the same. Here's the whole thing about pizza. And then other addictive foods, you mentioned chips. What's the thing that really makes something addictive? You can have lots of carbs and some fat, and then the third element what comes in those big cellophane bags?
Chips.
Chips, yeah. Okay. So that's the perfect combo, isn't it? Some fat, usually in the form of vegetable oils, lots of carbs in the form of corn and what's Doritos made of? It's mostly corn, some wheat, things of that sort. And then some salt, okay? That's why you can't stop eating them, okay? And the manufacturers know that, don't they? Okay. And that's why when you go in the grocery store, there they are, all the racks, okay? And, I'm always fascinated with grocery stores. Is the food in there just on display? Why is it there? Every single product is there for one reason.
You to buy it.
Somebody buys it, okay? It's not a museum, folks, okay? So when you walk in that store, imagine all that food going out of that store and into people's stomachs, okay? So when you see aisle after aisle after aisle with cookies, cakes, potato chips, all that processed garbage in the middle, it's all going inside people, okay? And then we wonder why we're overweight and sick in this country. Hello? Okay? Not a mystery. Okay? What's that movie? It was Soylent Green, where the Martians came and, they were feeding people this food. And so, it just boggles my imagination. We've set up our food supply in such a way. We've normalized the high-carb diet, haven't we? Okay? We give it to our kids liberally, right? Oh yeah, just special occasions, like every day. We have holidays that are based on high-carb intake, right? Halloween and practically every other holiday. We celebrate with carbohydrates, right? You ever give somebody a piece of watermelon for their birthday? You might now. I could show you a clever way to make a watermelon cake with whipped cream that's very low carb. But this is cultural stuff, okay? Can you go food shopping? We're going to talk about food in just a minute. Katie's going to come up here and help me with that. Bread, staff of life, it's universal. Bread with every meal, I hear that over and over again in this community. How can you have a meal without bread, right? Okay, and we have lots. We have 48 bakeries in the area. Google it sometime.
48.
And if you come from the Azores or have heritage from there, what's the standard meal?
Rice, potatoes,
Well,
French fries, olives.
it's got to include potatoes, maybe French fries in addition, rice, and bread. There you go, your 4 basic food groups. Okay. And we wonder why we have one of the highest diabetes rates anywhere in the state right here. Okay. And then, of course, we normalize not only sodas, but remember orange juice? I go back to the early 50s. I was born in 47. And I don't remember orange juice being on the table until sometime in the late 50s when the first frozen orange juice came out. Anybody remember frozen orange juice? Okay, in the can that you never could get out, and it took forever to get it mixed up and stuff like that. But why was my mother buying orange juice that we never had it before? What's the deal on orange juice? What did we learn about orange juice? It's good for us, didn't we? There's a huge marketing campaign. Why? Because it had what? Vitamin C. As if there was no other way to get vitamin C without a big tall glass of orange juice. The vitamin C is in all kinds of things, you don't need that much. But it was a marketing effort to get everyone to drink orange juice. Why? Because the orange growers were going crazy in Florida. They had too many oranges. And what happens when you grow a lot of oranges and you can't sell them? They go bad, they rot, okay? But they found flash freezing. But you can't flash freeze whole oranges because of the fiber in them, and the cell walls blow up and all that kind of stuff. So what do? You squeeze all the juice out, okay? Then you can freeze the juice and actually you evaporate it so it's concentrated, etc., okay? So now they had a way with all these orange groves to sell their orange juice, but they had to convince America that it was something that everybody should have. And it's one of the most effective marketing campaigns ever in America, okay? And now, if you want a picture of health, you'll often see somebody will choose a picture of a glass of orange juice, right? What could be healthier? Guess what it also is full of? Sugar. As much sugar as in Coca-Cola. So you might as well put a big tall glass of Coca-Cola next to your eggs in the morning. Okay, because that's what you're getting. If you want some vitamin C, have a little bit of broccoli, you're good for the day, no problem, okay? But we were all convinced, weren't we, that orange juice is just wonderful, okay? Meanwhile, what were we doing? Look, down with the sugar, okay? Up with the weight, up with the diabetes, okay? Isn't it awful to learn these things usually? Oh my God. Okay, so to finish up here, how do you get off this addiction? First, you got to remove the offending substance. Okay, come on up, Katie. She's my expert on how you get this done. I've been doing this for 7 years. You just started doing this?
I've been seriously doing it for probably about 5 months now, 4 or 5
Okay.
months.
So she's in the beginning of this, and that's what's really important in terms of learning how to do this. How do you get rid of carbohydrates in your diet?
Easiest way is to not have them in your house. If you can get rid of them, don't have them. But if you're like me and my fiance still eats rice and all that stuff, so he has a separate cabinet.
Okay.
So clean out your fridge, get the offenders out of the house. It's the same thing you would do if someone was stopping drinking. You clean out the bar, you wouldn't have booze in the house because it's too tempting. And then fill it with all the stuff you can eat. And that's a really important thing, is to be prepared. So you want to have stuff that you know you can eat when the cravings come in. Because when you first stop, if you go below 20 carbs, the first 3-4 days, just like any other withdrawal, are going to be the worst. That's when you're going to sit there and you're going to have dreams about French fries. You're going to sit there and go, oh my God, I just want a piece of bread. Just one won't hurt me.
Right.
And it passes. It passes. And, substituting it with things like herbal tea. That's my treat after dinner every night, is I have a cup of tea. And it kind of calms that craving for just a little something. Because I grew up in a house where after dinner you had dessert. It was always a popsicle or an ice cream sandwich or something like that. And my parents still do it now. And so I need, from my conditioning, to have something, and tea does that for me. But it could be, for some people, it's a high quality dark chocolate. Some people have nuts, a spoonful of peanut butter. There's a lot of things out there. So you got to find what's going to fit your need. The other thing too is be prepared. Plan it out. Become type A for a little while. Go grocery shopping with a list in mind. Think, okay, I'm going to grill a bunch of chicken, so I have that. Deviled eggs are great to have in the fridge as a snack.
Right. They're wonderful.
And you can doctor them up. In my house at Thanksgiving, they always made deviled eggs, and it was like, oh God, only have one of them. There's mayonnaise in that, and eggs, and you can't have too many, there's salt. But that's what you want, because that's going to keep you full. And 2 or 3 deviled eggs, you'll feel full. And you feel like you had something a little decadent. So, getting the bad out and getting in the house what you can. And if you do live with somebody that you're cooking for them, like I do the cooking in my house, because my fiance knows how to make hot dogs and rice. And willow tree chicken pies, if you put those in the oven. So I tell him if he wants a carb, he can cook it. And I say, this is what's for dinner. There's grilled chicken, it's steak tips, it's whatever it is. If you want rice, put it in the rice cooker. Because I don't want to cook it and I don't want to smell it.
And if you want rice, what can you make?
Cauliflower rice. Which I don't know if you had a chance to look through the packets in the back. We did supply some recipes for the cauliflower rice, cauliflower mashed potatoes, which make an excellent shepherd's pie. The zoodles that we had talked about last week. And then also my favorite thing for breakfast is hash browns made out of radishes, which are very low carb. And when you cook them like that, they taste like a potato. And if you put a fried egg on top of it and you get the yolk going down, it's a good thing. So that I highly recommend to do that. And you don't have to use the onions and peppers. You could just do spices and potatoes. Or if you go to breakfast at Gina's and you want to make a hash with the charisse like they do, charisse is pretty low carb too. So, but the radishes, they're really good. And then it's just about, almost keeping it simple. The more simple you keep things, the easier it is. If you have a Foreman grill or a grill pan, it'll become your best friend, because you can grill a cheeseburger to have on a salad. You can grill chicken and grill it up so that you have it ready to go for snacks, and then dip it in buffalo sauce and blue cheese. So you can prepare, like for me, I work, so I pack my lunches. I do Mason salad jars for the week ahead, and they stay fresh until Friday. But I grill my chicken on a Sunday and chop it up and put it in there.
A lot of it's having things available.
Right.
Right.
Right, because in a moment of weakness and laziness, you're gonna come home and be like, oh my God, I just wanna call and order a pizza. But remember, pizza places have antipasto salads.
Right. And if you're really stuck, you're out with a group and everybody's having pizza, fine, just eat the topping.
Yep, scrape the toppings off.
Forget the bread, that's where the sugar is.
Yep. And work functions for some people can be hard if they cater in lunches. And I always, if there's sandwiches, I just scrape out the sandwiches and put the bread on the side.
Right.
But usually in a
You've seen me do that.
I did it this week at our meeting Thursday.
Yes, right.
The wraps.
Yep,
I scraped everything out of the wrap, threw the wrap away,
there you go.
and ate all the inside. It was delicious.
Yeah.
Right. And those wraps can be like 20, 25 grams.
They're huge too.
Yeah.
I mean, it is big.
And most now, you can say I want a hamburger without the bun.
Yep.
Right.
I want this without the bread. And we were out with a woman last night. She had a tuna melt. It was just that, just the tuna and a slice of cheese on top.
Yep.
It was delicious. She had nothing else to go with it.
Yep.
She has some
Yeah.
she has some tomato on the
Sliced
side.
Yep.
tomatoes, onions, whatever.
And she was entirely happy.
Be careful
Yeah.
of ketchup,
Yeah.
Yes.
full of sugar.
Yes.
But even, like most restaurants are accommodating because you're saving the money because they're charging you the same amount, but they're
Yes.
not putting the bun on the plate.
Right.
So they actually save money from their overhead.
And I'll tell you a little secret. Sometimes the waitresses and waiters are, they feel sorry for you
Yeah.
for not eating bread or potatoes and things like that. So they give you a little extra of
The other thing that that is phenomenal is if you go out, like Mexican restaurants are hard. I love Fiesta. Mexican is hard. But we went to Chili's the other night, and they had prime rib fajitas, and I had everything except the fajita wrapper. So it was prime rib, onions, peppers, sour cream, guacamole, and and cheese. And I just put it all on there, and I was stuffed.
Right.
And it was delicious. So you can still go out, and that's the thing too. Like on those lazy nights you want to go out for dinner, if going out to dinner 1-2 nights a week is in your rotation, it's in your life, do it. It's just, you just have to kind of tweak it a little bit.
And if you go with a carb addict, they'll be happy to eat the stuff you don't want.
Sure.
Works fine.
I've even, they had lasagna catered into work, and I've taken like 3 pieces and scraped out the meat and the cheese and put the pasta on the side. And usually there's an antipasto salad or some kind of mixed salad with chicken and broccoli. I take the broccoli and like the chicken and leave the penne box.
One of my strategies when I go to conferences in particular, when I go to public health conferences, they're the worst because they're still on this 40-year-old theory that fat's bad for you. So everything they have is low fat and full of carbs and stuff like that. So what do? I bring chicken, good chicken, cheese. Okay, keep it in my pocket. I even put it in with a one of those freezer pack things. So you keep it in your pocket or purse or whatever. It doesn't have to be a lot. But that gives you enough fat so you can survive, you know, a meal. And even if you're just eating salad and cheese, at least you have a low-carb meal out of that.
And I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we have a lot of good cheeses in this area. There are a lot of really good Portuguese cheeses. Those are not off limits.
Right. And if you want to save money, you know, cheese can be expensive. Go to Price Right. Okay. 8-ounce bricks, $1.99, and about 10 different flavors, and they're all from upstate New York cows. You know, so it's good cheese. I eat that all the time.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts, questions, ideas from any of you? How many people? I gave you a challenge last time, right? Remember that? Anybody do any of these things?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What'd you do?
I did the bagel. I left the bagel out and I cooked like 6 or 7 hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah.
So I had that for breakfast. And I probably a full teaspoon of peanut butter, which I love.
Yeah. Well, you know, peanut butter it's moderate.
Yeah, well,
That's
that's label.
6 grams per tablespoon.
So it's just another shift.
Yeah. I'll tell you, one thing that happens when you eat a high-fat diet, you don't eat a lot. Okay? People think, oh, God, you just pig out and all this. No, you get full. You know? It doesn't take as much food. I eat about 2/3 of the quantity of food that I used to eat. You don't need a lot of food when you get fat. And that's in part how all of this works. You're getting the kinds of food that your body wants, which is fat that it can burn. And remember, fats take 4 times as long to digest. Carbs will go through you in 2 or 3 hours. Fats about 8 hours. Okay, so it stays with you longer.
And it's a different kind of full.
Yeah,
I can
right.
say if I had a salad with sour cream and cheese and it was like 1,000 calories versus a slice of pizza, which is 500, I'm going to lose weight.
You might very well. That's the strangest part of low-carb diets, is that people find that they're eating all kinds of stuff that they never thought they could eat, and they're losing weight at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I log my food in MyFitnessPal. And I don't watch my calories, but it's in there anyway. I use it so I can see how many carbs and how much fiber and everything like that. And I have high-lows and high-low days. So some days I'm like 1,200 calories, 1,300 calories. Sunday that football game was on, I had 2,200 calories. It was all low-carb though. I had 13 grams of carbs that whole day. And I lost weight this week. So, it is, and your body's going to regulate.
See what happens.
It's counterintuitive because it goes against everything we've ever been taught.
Sorry, it's so hard to.
Yeah.
Who do you believe?
Yeah. And I mean, I've been on Weight Watchers.
Well,
I've
you
done
believe,
Weight
who you believe is you believe your body,
Yeah.
okay? Don't listen to me. Listen to your body. Eat this way for 2 weeks. Stand on the scales, and then you tell me whether it's working or not, okay?
And it's going to be weird to be like, I have a steak. I don't have to worry about what I'm putting with the steak, or I have to have the leanest kind of steak. Have a ribeye.
Right.
It's good natural fat. You'll find that you'll be full fast with it, especially if you put like a hollandaise or a béarnaise sauce on it. If you want to get really decadent, that's the way to do it. But it's good, it's healthy, your body knows what to do with it.
This was known long ago. Anybody hear of the French paradox? Okay. French people for eons have been, and I'm speaking particularly Parisians, have been eating high-fat foods, okay, for as long as 1,000 years or whatever. What's their heart disease rate? The lowest in the Western world, okay? And that was, the docs heard that, oh, it's the French paradox, so it must be something weird that they're doing or one thing. They don't eat huge amounts of food, little plate, but lots of fat, they're the inventors of frog gua. I'm not advocating for it, but I mean, high fat is where the flavor is. That's why chefs love fat, okay? The poor chefs who were told 30 years ago, take the fat out of food, and went, how can I do this? I'll put some sugar in.
You have to find what works for you, and it may be low carb, it may not be low carb, it could be more of a moderate carb thing. But the hope is that with this we can kind of all work together and share some information and share ideas and share recipes and hopefully get to be the best us that we can be through this fitness challenge. And then beyond, because Daisy runs all year. And I look forward to getting new ideas for me because I'm always looking for new recipes and new tips and tricks.